Fellas, what's going on? It's Preacher. This is the third time I have recorded and having to re-edit this video, Andy.
I know, mate. I'm sick of hearing your bastard voice.
I know, I had to talk about the same stuff 3 times, but every time we do, Blizzard fixes something else with 7.2 and they correct it to what it's supposed to be. And hopefully, these few days of awfulness will not go down in history as just a collapsible nightmare end of days patch, which a lot of people are claiming. Obviously, the outrage is real. How happy the outraged are. But honestly, some of the outrages are actually deserved. I think that's fair to say. But it was a very strange experience coming from what we tested on the PTR extensively. We did a lot of videos on the PTR, making sure you guys were all prepared. And then what we actually got on Wednesday or Tuesday in the US, when we were like, no, this isn't what we were waiting for. This isn't what I knew was coming. This is all a bit wonky. So let's have a discussion about it. Initially, the big problem, of course, was the item level scaling. Communication, Blizzard. You can't... Recently, Blizzard's been bragging, openly bragging about their communication. And then you go and say something like, well, we did test this and nobody made a big deal about this change that affects every single player of the game, so we didn't feel like it needed to be in the patch notes. Bro, come on. Come on. You can't make a sweeping change to the entire world and not include it in the patch notes. Now, to be fair, we knew the world was getting buffed. We made videos on it. We knew that was happening, and it makes sense. It does make sense. Why? We're already at a power level, especially at the top end, where we're globaling everything, and we do things that they probably didn't expect. Like, we have World Quest add-ons that instantly queue us up, so we're 5-manning quests that were supposed to be soloable. I know many of you have probably joined groups, and instantly the thing you're after is dead, and you have to wait for it to respawn to do it, and these are supposed to be like the rare mobs. That's the world we live in. Blizzard didn't anticipate it. And not only that, we're only halfway through the expansion. So we're going to have a new raid coming. We know it's coming. There'll be stuff after that where we're going to be increasing with par. And it's going to get even worse. So it totally makes sense that they needed to readjust things. Is item level scaling the way to go? No, especially after they promised. And I honestly believe this is why they didn't say anything, is that they promised they weren't going to do it that way. They weren't going to item level scale you because it hurts the casual player base more than anyone else. So, to be clear, for anybody who's not understanding this, is they introduced a system which they have since hotfixed and retroactively worked backwards to make it better, which was that every time you upgraded your gear, the world upgraded with you in a very, very obvious manner. And that meant that unless you were already super powerful, like, it's all good, people who were like 900 plus item level, saying it still feels pretty easy to me. It's like, well, yeah, you're not representing most of the player base, or people playing alts or healers or anything. You're not representing those guys. You're designed to kill things. And Blizzard does intend for you to be way more powerful once you get really good gear than the world should be. Just not to the point where you're the giant Monty Python foot stamping all over the world. That's what they don't want, because honestly, the world does turn into cookie clicker at that point. But it should have been a flat increase. It should have been a flat increase based on where we're going to be to make it seem reasonable. And probably by the end of the expansion, we should absolutely be in a similar power level to what we were pre-7.2, which was pretty much stomping on everything because it's the closing days of the expansion and it's all good at that point, right? But that's not the way it went. People are obviously seeing all kinds of crazy things. I noticed it very heavily. And I want to make a point here, because the first video I did on this subject, I brought up the PTR and the lack of communication, and that we didn't feel this on the PTR. And I stand by my words. Neither me or Andy felt what we felt on Wednesday on the PTR. We didn't. We didn't at all. And that context is I have a 910, 911 mage who went to do a PvP world quest, and I put like 1.5 million DPS into a guard at a world tower, and he was still smacking me and still coming. I'm like, that ain't right, man. I didn't feel that in the PTR. And we did test the PTR. So I'm not buying that it was the same. On top of that, all the bugs that we've had are clearly from last minute changes. There was none of these bugs on the PTR. They weren't there. Right? My Frozen Orb was not randomly traveling through mobs. People would have definitely noticed if their Divine Storm wasn't working, or something as simple as a Moonkin Starlord talent isn't working while doing raid testing. It just wasn't there. So they definitely made a lot of last-minute changes. Unfortunately, I can't retroactively go back in time and double-check things. They say it was up since January. All I can say for definite is that I didn't feel it the way I felt it on live. But again, hotfixed and changed. Another one that's been a big problem with this launch is the Broken Shore. Many people were commenting, it's like, what is this? Because it's empty after about an hour. There's nothing to do here. And the whole Centenax system seems completely broken. And in fact, this video that I recorded yesterday had a big feature on that because I spent 40 minutes under the Centenax getting nothing done. It was clearly the worst place to gain nether shards. It was totally inefficient. There were no drops whatsoever that enabled it to scale up like it did on the PTR, which was where we were in a war about 5 minutes after getting there. I had groups of people show up, open a couple of portals, then they died off and people just drifted off because it wasn't worth their time. They've been hotfixing again. They've been hotfixing again. So now rares drop a luff. They've increased the Centenax stuff. They've got the Centenax working properly. So when we went down there to test it today, what did we find is that it did turn out into that all-out war. And it did turn into everything we wanted to see. And we got 1,500 nether shards in about 30-odd minutes. We were doing it as it was intended to do. And it's starting to look like the patch it should have been. So in that respect, it's like kudos for getting it right now. But this last-minute change, this lack of communication coming from the PTR to now, and then not really explaining what the fuck happened. Why are we a few days into this patch and yet your raid bosses are still broken? What happened there? We couldn't raid last night, as many other guilds across the world couldn't, because we're on Mythic Elisand and she don't work. She don't fucking work. There were bugs in Heroic, bugs in Normal, bugs in all sorts of stuff. So we ended up doing old content. Not that fun. Not that fun. Pretty goddamn wacky, to say the least, is the launch of 7.2. But they seem to be, thankfully, getting it right. And hopefully, by next reset, it should be all in place when the new Legion invasions actually come in. Which kind of does bring us to the time gating aspect. Again, why? There isn't that much content to get done early days in the Broken Shore. Regardless of Nether Shard farming, the world quests are intentionally not that many because they coincide with also the Emissary world quests. So they don't want you to be bogged down in stuff to do on a daily basis, which is fine, I get it. But if you're going to limit that content, then introducing the other content would have been fine as well as the class hall upgrade system. It's not that extensive it's not an extensive amount of content. It's not laborious. In fact, it's really fun. It's really fun content. And the launch content of 7.2 was very, very small. We had the AP stuff, which takes about 20 minutes, even at the longest one, which I believe is the Stormheim running backwards and forwards. It takes about 20 minutes. And once that's done in the Broken Shore, on average, takes about 20-30 minutes to get down there. You might want to do the dungeon, add another hour. So you're talking a major content patch came up with a couple of hours of extra content before we were right back to AP farming and doing Mythic Plus. That's not a great deal for a major content patch to then say, well, we better gate some of this off. We better not overburden people at the first step. Another big mistake in my eyes with the launch of 7.2, which, again, I reiterate, overall is a really good patch and will be in about 3 weeks' time when everything gets fixed. What a weird thing to put ourselves in. What a weird conundrum Blizzard placed in front of us, which is giving all this hype and then, again, just delivering short and also putting people in a position where literally the problems that the 7.2 patch launched with, a hell of a lot of people are like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with you. Item level scaling, I'm fucking done alone on that. That's bullshit. Why is the casual player base being hurt more than the raiders? Do we want to create that divide again? Hopefully not. It's not been that bad in Legion as it was in Warlords of Draenor. So why do we want to reintroduce that? Why would you want to diminish people's power gains, like, openly, and, like, talk about it? Why did we have to wait until posts appeared across MMO Champion and Reddit and the official Warcraft forums where people were asking, is this bug? What's happening here? And only then did we get a confirmation post from Watcher which explained the situation correctly, but then said, look, we are item level scaling you, which again, they've knocked back. Hot fixes upon hot fixes. A messy start to 7.2. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. If I'm coming out of this, my conclusions on the whole situation, which obviously many of you have been asking me about, is communication on this was fucking diabolical. I do not believe there is any justification for not openly discussing and pre-warning people in patch notes about something that affects literally everybody who plays your game in quite a major way. There's no justification for that in my eyes. And the gating system was entirely unnecessary. 7.2 was great because of all the content it brings. Spreading and thinning that out diminishes each of them. Because all you had is people saying, well, the Broken Shore's empty, and now I'm AP farming. Your dungeon is good, but it's really sort of buggy and wonky at high end. Karazhan has been out for a while, and while it's great to have them heroic versions, for many of us, we have at least done the mythic version or been in there, and it's not new. It's just slightly different and not new. I would even go as far as to say that the heroic versions of Karazhan are actually rather poorly implemented. Mythic seems fine. I've done both on Mythic, but the heroic versions where they've removed trash, the instance is just far too long. Even when it's split in half, it's a lot of running down corridors because it was designed to be raid style. And when you remove trash from there, it's a lot of downtime between bosses. Like Curator to the image is just a run, like for no apparent reason. And then you've got the drop down to the mana boss, which is just another long tedium stretch. And obviously then after that, you're just running to the chess event, which falls over, and finally doing the last boss. There's not a lot to engage you in heroic versions, but that's a personal taste, and some of you might actually quite enjoy that. Got to step up this communication. These answers don't feel to me acceptable, but I know, in finishing on a positive note, I absolutely know that 7.2, when it's all out and fixed and working properly, will be a really good moment for the game. Just wish it did not have to go live this way. It's my conclusion there. All right, thank you so much for listening, guys. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.